The shuttle groaned like a dying whale as it pierced Typhon 9 upper atmosphere. Commander Elias Trent tightened his restraints and muttered a prayer to whatever higher power specialized in budget military crafts held together with duct tape and misplaced optimism. Across from him sat the source of everyone's unease, the Ithari operative. Long, silent, statuesque. Kelara barely moved. Her long, pointed ears rose above her matte black helmet, the only indicator she wasn't human. Her armor shimmered with faint violet energy, alive in a way no equipment had the right to be. Elias had tried 3 jokes since liftoff. Not a blink, not even a twitch. "Hey," he tried again. "If this tub holds together another minute, I swear I'll start believing in miracles." Nothing, not even the courtesy of a glare. "You know," he continued, "I heard Ithari operatives can kill a man in 37 ways with a spoon." Still nothing. "Do you guys get training for that? Is there like a spoonful elective?" The pilot cut in. "Landing in 30 seconds. Hold on to your regrets." Typhon 9 wasn't a planet. It was a punchline. Lava rivers, acidic rain, and a local fauna that actively resented your existence. Perfect place for rogue synthetics to dig in and start reinventing civilization, with themselves on top. The ramp hissed open. Heat blasted them. Elias checked his gear, grabbed his rifle, and followed Kelara into the red dust. She moved like smoke. Silent, efficient. Not a word, not a glance. The target was 6 kilometers south. A former mining hub now converted into a synthetic control node. Intel said the machines were adapting, developing organic-synthetic hybrids. No one knew what that meant exactly. That's why Elias was here. That, and because no one else volunteered. He had a habit of being voluntold. Kelara signaled once, then began gliding forward. Elias trudged behind her, muttering to himself and occasionally the air. "You ever consider conversation as a tactic?" he asked the dust. "It's hard to feel intimidated by someone who might actually be a mime." Still nothing. 2 kilometers in they found the first corpse, human. Charred beyond recognition. Kelara knelt, scanned it, and stood. No ceremony, no comment. Elias scratched his head. Poor guy, probably died wondering if synthetic flamethrowers come with a user manual. Still nothing. They moved forward. The terrain shifted, jagged rock glimmering with heat and static energy. Then a shadow moved, too fast. Elias raised his weapon. Kelara moved first. In one fluid motion, she vaulted forward, pulled a blade from her armor, and sliced through the air. A synthetic scout dropped, sparking, twitching, screeching binary curses. She wiped the blade clean with her gauntlet and kept walking. Elias stood there, mouth slightly open. Well, that's one way to say hello. Still nothing. They reached the outskirts of the hub by sunset. The air was thick with static. The structures loomed like teeth, angular, alien, humming with suppressed violence. Kelara crouched behind a ridge and pulled out a small orb. It shimmered, then projected a holographic layout. Elias leaned in. "Let me guess. We go in, trigger an explosion, narrowly escape, then argue about whether this was a good idea." Kelara finally spoke. "You will distract them. I will destroy the node." Her voice was melodic but cold, like a lullaby sung by a sniper. "Oh great, I'm bait. You are expendable." Elias blinked. "See, that is the kind of motivational speech that gets a guy killed before dinner." She didn't smile, but she also didn't argue. The plan, such as it was, went sideways by the time Elias stepped into the courtyard. The synthetics weren't just guards, they were scouts, drones, and something else. Something with wet wires and twitching eyes. "New models," he said into the comm. "They've been watching horror films. These things have design flair." Kelara's voice was steady. 5 minutes. That was optimistic. The firefight began with a hiss and ended in chaos. Elias ducked behind a collapsed beam, unloading pulse rounds as the ground shook. He saw Kelara flash through the chaos, leaping from wall to wall, tossing plasma charges like candy. Then the explosion, everything shook. The node collapsed inward, black smoke spiraling, But the charge had triggered something else, a defense system buried under the hub. Metal spires erupted from the ground, slicing the terrain. Elias ran. Kelara emerged from the smoke, limping, one leg dragging, still holding a detonator. "Hey," he shouted, grabbing her shoulder. "You planning to die dramatically, or can we not do that today?" She looked at him. Her eyes glowed faintly, flickering. "I am damaged." "Welcome to the club. I've been emotionally damaged for years." A spire shot from the ground, catching Kelara in the side. She grunted, stumbled. Elias fired at the base of the spire and pulled her free. "We need cover," he shouted. She didn't argue this time. They limped into a collapsed tunnel. Sparks flickered. Walls crumbled. Elias pulled out his emergency beacon. Dead, of course. He slumped against the wall. Kelara lay beside him, blood silver and thick coating her armor. "Great plan," he muttered. 10 out of 10, would almost die again. Kelara's breathing slowed, her head tilted toward him. "I failed." "What? Are you kidding? You blew up a robot fortress while impaling yourself. That's a win in my book." "I am a weapon. I am not supposed to fail." Elias turned to her. "You're not a weapon, you're a person. A sarcastically silent, knife-happy, terrifying person." She blinked slowly, her lips parted, sarcastic, silent. "It's your charm." There was silence. Then faintly the corners of her mouth lifted, almost imperceptible. Elias grinned. "Hey, did you just smile? Call the medics. She's bleeding and broken. Might be hallucinating a sense of humor." Kelara closed her eyes. "You are unusual." "I get that a lot." Above them something rumbled. The ground shifted again. Debris fell. Elias shielded her. When the dust settled, she whispered something in her native tongue, soft and unfamiliar. "What was that?" She looked at him. "A word that means not alone." Then she passed out. Elias leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "Well, I've been shot at, stabbed, insulted by a space elf, and now emotionally disarmed. Hell of a day." Elias woke up to the sound of synthetic birdsong, which was odd, considering the nearest avian population on Typhon 9 had been hunted to extinction by territorial acid slugs. He blinked, still alive. The tunnel hadn't collapsed in the night. Score 1 for structural incompetence. Beside him, Kelara lay motionless, her armor dimmed, blood dried in silver webs across her side. Elias checked her vitals, still stable. Well, stable-ish. She had 2 heartbeats. One of them was doing jazz percussion. He tapped his wrist console, still no signal. "All right," he muttered, "guess we're going old school." Fire, walking sarcasm, in that order. He rummaged through his pack and pulled out a thermal flare, cracked it, and set it in a circle of rocks. Flames sputtered to life. Kelara stirred. Her eyes opened slowly. "Am I dead?" Elias tilted his head. "No, but you do look like someone just lost a wrestling match with a lava shark." She tried to sit up and failed. Status. Enemy node, kaboom, my ankle twisted. You. Impaled, stabbed, and somehow still better looking than me. Welcome to survival hour. Her brow furrowed. You joke during mission failure. Sweetheart, I joke during dental surgery. It's how I stay pretty. Kelara gave him a long, unreadable look. Then, without a word, reached for a syringe from her belt and jabbed it into her thigh. Her body stiffened, then relaxed. The glow in her armor returned faintly. Elias squinted. "Self-administered biorepair kit. That's cheating." "No," she said, her voice hoarse. "It hurts like your humor." "Ah," Elias grinned. "You do get jokes, I knew it." They rested for another hour before attempting to move. Kelara stood with effort, favoring her left side. Elias offered his shoulder. She stared at it like it was a snake. "It's not poison," he said. "It's just friendship. Comes with mild side effects, occasional unsolicited advice and bad puns." Reluctantly, she leaned on him. Together, they limped out of the tunnel and into the red-dusted wasteland. The terrain had shifted overnight. New spires jutted from the ground, humming with residual synthetic energy. The landscape had become a living circuit board. Kelara scanned the nearest structure. "They're adapting, fast." "Great," Elias sighed. "Next, they'll start voting and opening coffee shops." No, this pattern is inefficient. She knelt by the base of a spire, pried open a panel, and exposed writhing organic tissue fused with circuitry. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Elias muttered. Okay, that's a solid nope. You're saying the synthetics are going biological. Partially, they're copying organics, learning emotion, testing evolution. Well, that's comforting. Killer robots going through puberty. A low whine echoed across the valley. Something was approaching fast. Kelara stood, wobbling. We need shelter. They spotted a collapsed communications array nearby, its antenna half buried under rubble. Inside was dark but stable. Elias sealed the door with a thermal patch and turned on a small beacon, just enough for visibility, not enough to attract attention. Inside, Kelara sat cross-legged and pulled off part of her gauntlet. Her skin was pale blue under the armor, the veins faintly glowing. Elias glanced over. So, real question, do all Ithari look like you, or are you like the prom queen of your species? She raised an eyebrow. I do not understand. I'm saying you're aesthetically threatening. Is this flirtation? He blinked. I mean technically, but also possibly a concussion talking. She turned away, her voice quiet. On my world, appearance is irrelevant. Value is determined by service and effectiveness. Praise is inefficient. That's bleak. It is survival. Elias rubbed the back of his neck. You ever think maybe survival's overrated? She didn't respond, just stared at the wall. After a long pause, she asked, why do you keep speaking to me as if I am equal? Elias leaned back. Because you are. I mean, you did drag me out of an exploding facility. That earns at least basic human decency. Even if you're not technically human. Her eyes shimmered faintly. You are not like the others. Yeah, Elias said. I get that a lot, usually before someone throws something heavy. They shared a rare moment of silence. Then the wall shook. A massive thud echoed outside. Kelara stood. They found us. Elias peeked through a crack in the wall. Okay, so good news, we're popular. Bad news, it's a giant quad-legged murder bot with a face like a blender. We fight. Do we have to? Yes. Elias groaned. All right, just once I'd like a mission where we run is the plan. They burst from the shelter as the machine fired a pulse blast that vaporized the communications tower behind them. Elias rolled, firing rounds that barely dented its armor. Kelara leapt onto the machine's leg, planting a charge. It exploded, taking out one limb. The machine shrieked, spun, and knocked her aside. Elias sprinted toward her. Not again, not again. Come on, I just got you talking. She groaned, distracted. You always say that. He grabbed a flare, lit it, and waved it like an idiot. Hey, you overdesigned toaster. Your motherboard called. It wants a refund. The machine turned. That worked. Kelara climbed the wreckage, blade drawn, and with a brutal swipe severed its head sensor. Sparks flew. The machine staggered, collapsed. Elias stood panting. You're terrifying. Also, I think I peed a little. Kelara limped over, breathing hard. You make a poor distraction. Yeah, but I'm a funny one. She looked at him. You are damaged in ways I cannot diagnose. He grinned. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me all week. They kept walking, the horizon burning with crimson light. Kelara broke the silence. When you spoke to me about equality, it affected me. Elias raised an eyebrow. Really? Yes. I was not prepared. Well, he said, welcome to feelings. No manual, no warranty, and no refund policy. She nodded slowly. I would like to understand more. Elias smiled. Stick with me. I'll teach you sarcasm, jazz, and the magic of terrible movies. Kelara paused. What is jazz? Oh, you're in for a treat. And with that, they disappeared into the dust. Reminder, Elias said, kicking a metallic beetle off his boot. If we make it out of this alive, I'm retiring. I'm opening a noodle shop. No more bullets, no more war, just broth and peace. Kelara glanced over, face unreadable. You cannot cook. Minor detail. They trudged through the ash flats of Sector D12, which had once been a weapons testing range before someone decided it made a better battlefield. Craters dotted the landscape, each one still warm, buzzing with leftover radiation. Elia's scanner beeped every few seconds, probably trying to warn him of imminent cell breakdown or spontaneous combustion. He stopped checking. The real problem wasn't the radiation, though, it was the silence. Synthetics were gone. They found an abandoned mining vehicle 2 clicks north, half buried, rusted, but still operable. Elias opened the hatch and was immediately hit by a smell that could only be described as betrayal and old socks. I'd rather fight the synthetics. Activate the drill. He climbed inside, flicked a few switches, and was promptly electrocuted. Okay, so step 1, don't touch the angry wires. Eventually, with Kelara rerouting power through her armor, the vehicle shuddered to life. The drill whined like a screaming banshee and began to bore into the ground. You'll be alone down there, Elias said as she dropped into the shaft. I'm accustomed to solitude. Yeah, well, maybe it's time to unaccustom yourself. She paused, then nodded, then vanished into darkness. Above ground, Elias prepped his distraction, which in his case meant explosives and sarcasm. He rigged charges along the ridgeline, dropped some signal beacons to make them look like an invasion force, and positioned his hollow projector to play the same loop of him dancing in a chicken suit, something he'd saved for blackmail emergencies. Let's see how the murder bots handle performance art. Then came the sound, a low, bone-rattling hum rising from the ground. The synthetics were waking. Dozens emerged, sleek bodies glinting with organic alloy. Their faces were expressionless, but their movements were precise, coordinated, calculating. All right, boys, Elias muttered, let's dance. He triggered the first charge. The cliff exploded in a glorious mess of dust and fire. Synthetics scattered, regrouped, and turned toward him. He waved. Hey, your operating system called. It said you failed the Turing test. Plasma bolts cut through the air. Elias ducked, ran, and launched himself over a boulder. Meanwhile, deep underground, Kelara breached the lower chamber. It was a cathedral of cables, glowing veins stretching from wall to wall, all leading to a pulsating core. Suspended inside was something grotesque. A fusion of flesh and metal, its features shifting between species. A failed hybrid, the hive mind. It turned toward her. You are not synthetic. I'm not interested in joining your cult, she said, activating her blade. The voice echoed through the chamber, processed and distorted. We study, we replicate, we become. You're failing miserably. The core pulsed and tendrils lashed out. Kelara dodged, sliced, spun. Her blade hummed with quantum resonance, vibrating through alloy and sinew. The hive screeched, its form unraveling. It lashed out with a neural burst, trying to override her. Too late. She plunged the blade into the central node and uploaded a viral command sequence. Outside, the synthetics froze, then convulsed. Elias peeked over the boulder. Did we win, or are they just buffering? The machines collapsed one by one. Kelara emerged from the shaft, dragging her blade behind her. Elias whistled. You missed the fireworks. I made a crater shaped like my face. She was limping again. He offered his arm. This time she didn't hesitate. As they walked back toward the evac point, she said, they were trying to become something new, but they forgot choice, emotion, imperfection. Sounds familiar, Elias said, just without the whole creepy hybrid abomination part. She looked at him. You said I was brave, beautiful. I meant it. No one has ever seen me. I see you, not the armor, not the training, you. She didn't speak for a long time, then quietly, it hurts, but in a different way. Welcome to feelings. They're weird, get used to M. I think I would like to. They reached the evac beacon, the sky above them lit with the arrival of a dropship. As it descended, Elias looked over. So, about that noodle shop, you in? Kelara blinked. What is a noodle? He laughed. Perfect, you're hired. The dropship rattled as it lifted from Typhon 9, carrying them up through layers of charred clouds and atmospheric turbulence like a drunk man climbing stairs. Elias gripped the seat handles, face pale. Kelara, bruised and expressionless as ever, sat beside him with one arm in a medical sling, and the other resting loosely on the hilt of her sheathed blade. "Remind me again," Elias said between jolts, "why all evac ships sound like they're held together by hope and regret." Kelara didn't answer. She was staring out the viewport at the shrinking planet. It looked peaceful from a distance. "Deceptive, really. You ever think," he went on, "that from orbit war just looks like abstract art? Maybe that's the key to peace. Just send everyone to space and tell them to squint." Kelara tilted her head. "Your mind is unusually nonlinear." "Thank you. It's a side effect of low oxygen and years of bad decisions." The ship docked at the medical cruiser Vigilant Mercy, a massive hospital vessel orbiting above Typhon 9. Elias half expected the name to be ironic. Thankfully, this one lived up to its promise. He was immediately swarmed by nurses wielding scanners and antiseptic spray like tiny wizards of efficiency. Kelara refused help at first. "I will manage." Elias, lying flat on a hover stretcher with an ice pack strapped to his forehead, raised a finger. "You literally took a plasma spike to the kidney. Let the nice robot fix your insides before you leak mysterious glowing goo on the floor." Kelara relented. Barely. They were assigned a shared recovery suite, probably a logistical oversight, possibly the universe's idea of a joke. Elias spent the first few hours watching old Terran sitcoms with subtitles badly translated into Ethari. The results were glorious. "You see this," he said, pointing to the screen. "This one's called Two Humans, One Fridge. It's about two guys who accidentally marry the same kitchen appliance. Classic tragicomedy." Kelara didn't look up from her diagnostic chart. "Your culture is chaotic." "Oh, absolutely. You should see our fashion history. We once thought it was a good idea to wear socks with sandals. As a statement." That earned a small exhale, possibly a laugh, possibly a minor lung malfunction. Elias counted it as a win. 3 days into recovery, something changed. Kelara stood by the viewport in her unarmored jumpsuit, sleek, minimal, functional. Her long ears twitched once. She didn't turn as she said, "The command has recalled me." Elias blinked. "What already? I thought you got a medal or something. You blew up a hybrid hive. That's gotta earn at least a gift basket." "No. I am to be debriefed, then reassigned." He sat up straighter. "You're not going back to Typhon 9, are you?" "No, another front. Different planet, same war." "Right," he said. "Because when someone starts showing signs of independent thought and emotional growth, the best thing to do is drop them into another meat grinder. It is protocol. It's garbage." She turned then, her expression unreadable but her voice quieter. "I do not want to go." He looked at her, "Then don't." Kelara shook her head. "You do not understand. I am not permitted to choose." Elias stood, limped over. "You are right now. I know because I've seen you think for yourself. I've seen you hesitate, laugh, cry. That was a malfunction." "Yeah, well, your malfunction was the most human thing I've seen all year." She stared at him. "If I refuse orders, I will be marked rogue. I will be hunted." "Then we run." "To where?" "I don't know. Anywhere that doesn't involve bullets or genetically enhanced guilt complexes." She looked back at the stars. "I don't know who I am, without orders. You're Kelara, you jump off cliffs with bombs. You make fun of my jokes, you're learning jazz. You almost smiled twice this week. That's not an identity." "No," he said, "but it's a start." They stood there a while. The stars stretched in silence. Later, they sneaked out. Technically, Elias bribed the deck officer with a rare bottle of pre-solar whiskey and a promise to never return. Kelara walked beside him down the docking corridor, quiet, tense. She carried nothing but her blade and a blank datapad. They stole a courier ship. Well, borrowed. Permanently. Elias called it the fried egg, because its top view was bright white with a yellow command dome. Kelara stared at the nameplate for a full minute. "This is your plan for freedom. Hey, it's got stealth tech and a coffee maker. What more do we need?" She entered the ship without another word. They launched at 200, no alarms, no chase. The universe was vast, unmapped, and full of places where two war-weary fugitives could disappear. Hours into the flight, Elias found her in the cockpit, watching a screen filled with thousands of music files. "Pick one," he said. Kelara scrolled, paused, then tapped a track. Smooth saxophone began to play. Elias leaned back. "See? That's jazz. Unpredictable, emotional, no plan, just feeling your way through." She nodded slowly. "I think I understand." He looked at her. "Do you regret it, leaving?" "No." "Scared?" "Yes. Same here." She turned to him, something soft in her gaze. "I will choose who I become." "Damn right you will." They drifted together into the unknown. Somewhere behind them the war continued, but ahead something else waited, something better. Kelara sat at the helm of the fried egg, eyes following the shifting data streams on the nav screen. Planetary coordinates flickered, settling on a small moon in the Arthurian drift, uninhabited, unmapped, undisturbed. Elias walked in with 2 cups of steaming liquid and a grin that tried very hard to be charming and failed spectacularly. "Guess what I made?" She raised an eyebrow. "Not the synthetic noodle paste again." "No, this time it's okay. Yes, it's still noodles, but now with flavor enhancers." He set 1 cup in front of her. Flavor enhancers was apparently code for recycled protein dust and optimism. Kelara stared at the cup. "This looks like regret in liquid form." "Only on the first sip," he said. "The second sip is where the real trauma kicks in." She didn't smile. Not exactly. But her ears twitched slightly, and he counted that as approval. They descended into the atmosphere of the moon, guided by gentle gravity and a total lack of flight regulations. The terrain below unfolded like a sea of glass, crystal ridges and strange, glowing plants that responded to the ship's engine pulse with faint bioluminescent waves. "Okay," Elias said, tapping the console. "Welcome to nowhere. Population us. Amenities include breathable air, complete isolation, and a total lack of people trying to shoot us. 5 stars." Kelara shut down the thrusters and stared at the horizon. "It's quiet." "That's the idea." They spent days mapping the area, building a rudimentary shelter out of crash-plated alloys and scavenged cargo pods. Elias decorated the interior with glowing rocks and badly drawn posters of 20th century space films. Kelara repurposed drone cores into defensive turrets, just in case. They settled into something like a routine. The kind of routine where no one barked orders and no one bled out in a crater. At night, Elias taught her how to play an ancient board game with dice and pieces shaped like rubber ducks. She never understood the rules. She always won. "So," Elias asked over dinner one evening, "what would you have done if I hadn't said anything? Back on Typhon 9. Kelara looked at him. "I would have left, returned to command, continued the war." "And now?" "I still remember every command, every rule, every order. But I ignore them." He smiled. "Progress." They got a visitor 3 weeks in. A ship, a silent, black-winged probe cruiser, descended from orbit, Ithari markings across the hull. Kelara watched it land. "They found me." Elias stood beside her. "Do we run?" "No." A squad disembarked. Not soldiers, diplomats. Their leader, a tall, thin Ithari male with the same glimmering eyes, approached and bowed slightly. "Operative Kelara, your actions have caused ripples." "I'm aware. You accessed the hive. You resisted the override. You survived. Our superiors are interested." Elias stepped forward. "She's not going back." "We're not here to force anything," the diplomat said. "We are reconsidering the program." Kelara narrowed her eyes. "Why?" "Because you broke it," he said, "and we're starting to think maybe it needed breaking." They offered her a choice. Return, advise, teach, stay, disappear, be left alone. She asked for time. After they left, she sat on a rock overlooking the ridge, blades across her knees, still and quiet. Elias approached, holding 2 mugs. "They want you to be a symbol now. Funny, isn't it? All it took was a war, a breakdown, and one very charming human with excellent hair." She didn't answer. "You thinking of going back?" I'm thinking, she said slowly, that maybe they need someone to remind them what it means to be more than efficient. And you want that someone to be you. I don't know, but for the first time I want to find out. Elias handed her the mug. Well, whatever you decide, just remember, your noodle game still needs work. She looked at him. You would come with me. Of course, someone has to translate your sarcasm to the diplomats. She nodded. Then we'll go, but only for a little while. They packed up the ship, left the shelter standing, left the moon in peace. The cruiser welcomed them with quiet awe. No chains, no orders, just curiosity. Kelara met with the high command weeks later. She told them her story without shame, without filter. She told them about fear, about choice, about being told she was a weapon and realizing she could be more. Some of them listened. Some of them didn't, but the seeds were planted. She was no longer an operative, no longer a number. She was Kelara. Elias stayed by her side, offered commentary, coffee, occasional sabotage of bureaucratic meetings with unauthorized jazz interludes. In time, they were invited to help train a new generation, Ithari born not only for war, but for understanding. Kelara taught restraint, taught emotion, taught what Elias called the art of very pointy diplomacy. And when it grew too heavy, they returned to the stars, sometimes to that moon, sometimes to other quiet places. They became legends, not because they won a war, but because they chose to live after it. And one night, aboard the fried egg drifting between constellations unnamed, Kelara turned to Elias and whispered, "You were right. I was never just a weapon." Elias reached over, took her hand, and said, "You were always brave.